He'd been the doorman at Manhattan's most exclusive residential building for 9 years, opening doors, signing for packages, politely greeting residents who barely acknowledged his existence. Just another elderly man in uniform trying to make ends meet. Until armed terrorists targeted the building's high-profile residents, and suddenly the quiet doorman revealed why his eyes never stopped scanning for threats. Vincent Anthony Carlucci was 75 years old, with steel gray hair combed precisely and sharp hazel eyes that seemed to catalog every person who entered or left the building. His compact frame was still solid despite his age, and his hands bore the calluses of someone who had spent decades gripping weapons and tactical equipment rather than door handles and package delivery forms. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we continue this powerful tale of hidden expertise and protective instincts, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories about quiet guardians deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. The Meridian Tower stood 43 stories above Park Avenue, representing the pinnacle of luxury Manhattan living. Built in 1887, the building housed tech billionaires, foreign diplomats, entertainment industry executives, and old money families whose names appeared on museum wings in university buildings. Monthly maintenance fees exceeded most Americans' annual salaries, and the waiting list for apartments stretched years into the future. Vincent worked the night shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., manning the marble reception desk in a lobby decorated with original artwork worth more than most people's houses. His duties appeared straightforward: greet residents, announce visitors, accept packages, and ensure building security during overnight hours when the day staff went home. The residents who encountered him during evening arrivals treated Vincent with the polite distance reserved for service personnel, a nod while passing through the lobby, occasionally asking him to hold packages, sometimes inquiring about building maintenance issues. He was part of the building's infrastructure, reliable, professional, and essentially invisible. "Evening, Vincent. Any packages today?" "Yes, Mrs. Chen. 2 deliveries from Bergdorf's, signed and secure." "Thank you. You're always so dependable." These brief exchanges represented the extent of Vincent's interaction with people who lived in apartments worth tens of millions of dollars. They saw a courteous elderly doorman who took pride in his work, never imagining they were speaking to someone who had spent 30 decades protecting far more important people in far more dangerous situations. Vincent lived in a rent-stabilized studio apartment in Queens, a 45-minute subway ride from Manhattan's elite corridors. The apartment was spartanly furnished but comfortable: single bed, small kitchen, worn recliner positioned to face windows that provided clear sightlines to the street below. But certain aspects of the apartment would have raised questions if anyone had examined them closely. The door was reinforced with steel plates behind standard apartment hardware. The windows were equipped with bulletproof film invisible from outside. Security cameras monitored hallway approaches through feeds displayed on screens Vincent had installed himself. And in a fireproof safe hidden behind kitchen cabinets were items from another life: federal credentials that retained certain authorities even in retirement, tactical equipment maintained in perfect condition, and photographs of younger men in suits who had stood between American officials and threats that never made evening news broadcasts. Special Agent Vincent Anthony Carlucci, United States Secret Service. 32 years protecting presidents, vice presidents, cabinet officials, and foreign dignitaries whose safety was essential to American national security. His specialty had been advanced security and threat assessment, identifying potential dangers before they materialized into actual attacks. The career had taken Vincent around the world, to summits where global leaders made decisions affecting millions of lives, political rallies where crowd dynamics could turn deadly in seconds, and diplomatic events where international tensions played out in handshakes and formal dinners that required perfect security execution. He'd protected 5 presidents during his career, taken bullets meant for officials whose names were household words, and prevented assassination attempts that would have changed the course of American history if they'd succeeded. His service record contained commendations for valor, tactical excellence, and the kind of quick thinking that kept democracy functioning when violence threatened its foundations. Retirement in 2015 was mandatory rather than voluntary. Secret Service regulations required agents to retire at 57 to maintain the physical standards necessary for protective duties. Vincent was proud of his service, satisfied with his pension, and completely unprepared for civilian life that lacked the purpose and intensity that had defined his adult existence. The doorman position at the Meridian Tower wasn't about money. His federal pension provided comfortable retirement income. It was about having somewhere to go, something to do, and people to protect even if they didn't know they needed protection. Because Vincent had learned during his federal career that threats could emerge anywhere, targeting anyone whose prominence made them valuable to terrorists, kidnappers, or foreign intelligence operations. The Meridian Tower housed exactly the kinds of high-value targets that attracted international attention from people with violent intentions. Tech executives whose companies controlled critical infrastructure, diplomatic families whose kidnapping could destabilize international relations, financial industry leaders whose deaths could trigger market chaos, entertainment figures whose global recognition made them symbols worth attacking for publicity purposes. Vincent's trained eyes noted details that civilian security systems missed, surveillance patterns that suggest advanced reconnaissance, individuals whose behavior indicated hostile intent, and environmental factors that could facilitate attacks on building residents. Over 9 years, he quietly prevented dozens of incidents that residents never knew about. Suspicious individuals denied building access, packages intercepted before explosive detection, delivery services that weren't who they claimed to be. Small interventions that prevented larger problems, all executed with the discretion that characterized world-class protective operations. Tuesday, December 12th, started like any other evening shift. Vincent arrived at 5:50 p.m., relieved the day doorman, and settled into his position behind the marble desk that provided optimal sightlines to building entrances, elevator banks, and the street activities visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Evening traffic was typical for December in Manhattan. Residents returning from work, holiday shoppers carrying expensive purchases, delivery services handling the increased volume that characterized pre-Christmas logistics. Vincent monitored activities with the systematic attention to detail that had kept presidents alive during his federal career. At 8:30 p.m., he noticed something that activated 32 years of threat assessment training. A panel van had been parked across the street for 45 minutes, its engine running, license plates obscured by road salt that looked deliberately applied. The vehicle had clear sightlines to building entrances and would provide excellent staging areas for surveillance or assault operations. Individual suspicious details might be coincidental, but Vincent had learned to trust pattern recognition developed through decades of identifying threats before they materialized into actual attacks. At 9:15 p.m., his concerns escalated when he observed two men conducting what appeared to be reconnaissance of building security features. They walked past the Meridian Tower 3 times, photographing entrances with phones, noting security camera positions, and discussing architectural details in voices too low to overhear, but with body language that suggested professional assessment rather than casual tourism. Vincent had seen identical behavior during advanced threat surveys conducted before attacks on protected facilities. These weren't random criminals or opportunistic burglars. They were professionals planning something that required detailed intelligence about building vulnerabilities. He discreetly activated security protocols developed during his years protecting high-value targets, photographed surveillance subjects with concealed cameras, documented vehicle information through databases that retained his federal access, and prepared contingency responses for various threat scenarios. At 10:47 p.m., Vincent's worst fears were confirmed. 4 men entered the building lobby with credentials identifying them as security consultants hired to conduct routine safety assessments for building management. Their documents appeared authentic, their professional demeanor was convincing, and their explanation for late-night access seemed plausible. But Vincent recognized tactical equipment concealed beneath business suits, communication devices that belonged to military rather than civilian security operations, and movement patterns that indicated combat training rather than consulting backgrounds. Gentlemen, I'll need to verify your appointment with building management before providing access. The team leader stepped forward with practiced authority. Mr. Carlucci, we're operating under direct authorization from Meridian Management Group. Our security assessment requires immediate access to evaluate overnight protocols. Vincent noted that they knew his name despite never having met him, suggesting advanced intelligence gathering that exceeded routine business preparations. He also recognized micro-expressions and vocal stress patterns that indicated deception, techniques learned during thousands of hours screening individuals who approached protected facilities with hostile intent. I understand your position, sir, but building policy requires management confirmation for all after-hours access, regardless of credentials. Mr. Carlucci, we're on a tight schedule. Surely you can make an exception for legitimate security professionals. That's when Vincent noticed the most concerning detail of all. One of the men was carrying a briefcase that contained electronics inconsistent with security consulting equipment. Radio frequencies that suggested remote detonation capability, signal jammers that would disable building communications, and what appeared to be chemical detection equipment designed to monitor airborne toxins. Vincent Anthony Carlucci had 32 years of experience protecting people from exactly this kind of threat. The equipment's signature, operational planning, and targeting profile all indicated a sophisticated terrorist attack designed to take hostages among the Meridian Tower's high-profile residents. Special Agent Carlucci made his decision in approximately 10 seconds. Gentlemen, I'm going to need you to wait in the lobby while I contact building management for verification. Instead of complying, the team leader reached inside his jacket for what Vincent's trained instincts recognized as weapon access rather than credential retrieval. The transformation was instantaneous. Vincent moved with the speed and precision of someone who had spent 3 decades in life-or-death situations. In one fluid motion, he activated building-wide security lockdown, triggered silent alarms connected to federal law enforcement databases, and neutralized the team leader using techniques that were muscle memory from countless hours of protective training. His voice, when he spoke into the building's public address system, carried the authority of someone who had commanded protective operations for presidents of the United States. Attention Meridian Tower residents, this is Special Agent Vincent Carlucci, United States Secret Service. The building is under lockdown due to credible terrorist threat. Please remain in your apartments and await further instructions. The remaining 3 operatives realized they were facing someone far more dangerous than an elderly doorman, someone whose training, experience, and institutional authority represented everything they'd failed to account for in their operational planning. The engagement that followed lasted less than 4 minutes. Agent Carlucci used the building's architecture to his tactical advantage, implementing defensive strategies developed during decades of protecting facilities against hostile assault. Security systems that residents never knew existed, communication protocols that connected directly to federal response teams, and tactical positioning that neutralized superior numbers through superior preparation. When it was over, 4 international terrorists were secured with restraints improvised from building maintenance supplies. Their weapons were safeguarded, and Vincent was calmly briefing federal agents who arrived to find the situation completely under control. Agent Martinez, FBI counterterrorism, what's our status here? Vincent straightened his doorman's uniform, adjusted his tie, and provided the kind of professional briefing that characterized world-class protective operations. 4-man terrorist cell, armed with automatic weapons and improvised explosive devices, attempted to gain building access using false credentials. Targets appear to be diplomatic and technology industry residents. Subjects are secured and awaiting federal custody. Agent Martinez stared at the elderly doorman who had single-handedly prevented what could have been one of the worst domestic terrorist attacks in New York City history.
Agent Carlucci, how did you identify them as threats? Vincent looked around the marble lobby where he'd spent 9 years protecting people who never knew they needed protection. 32 years of federal service teaches you to recognize when something doesn't belong. These men didn't belong in this building, and they certainly didn't belong in America. The story remained classified in federal databases that residents would never see. The prevented attack, neutralized terrorist cell, and lives saved all disappeared into intelligence files that protected operational security while maintaining the discretion that luxury buildings required. Vincent returned to work the next evening, put on his doorman's uniform, and resumed his position behind the marble reception desk. But residents began treating him differently. Word had quietly spread that their elderly doorman had prevented something terrible from happening, though official details remained unavailable. The polite distance was replaced by genuine respect. Casual greetings became conversations, and several residents made sure to thank him for dedication that went far beyond job requirements. "Vincent, I heard there was some kind of security incident last night," Mrs. Chen said the following week. Vincent looked up from the package log, his hazel eyes holding the calm intensity that had never quite disappeared. "Just doing my job, Mrs. Chen, making sure everyone stays safe." "Were you really a federal agent?" Vincent smiled slightly, the first time residents had seen him express anything beyond professional courtesy. "Ma'am, I've been protecting people my entire adult life. The uniform may have changed, but the mission stays the same." Vincent Carlucci continued working at the Meridian Tower until he was 81, when arthritis finally forced actual retirement. The building management created a small plaque in the lobby recognizing exceptional service to resident safety, though official details remained classified. But residents who lived there during his tenure never forgot that their security depended on someone whose expertise far exceeded his job title, whose vigilance never wavered, and whose commitment to protection continued long after his federal career officially ended. Because the best security is the kind you never know you have, provided by people whose dedication doesn't end when they change uniforms.